taking place within Iran is not about the United States or any other country. It's about the Iranian people and their aspirations for justice and a better life for themselves. And the decision of Iran's leaders to govern through fear and tyranny will not succeed in making those aspirations go away.
So that was President Obama just a few days ago. We're joined now by Ray Takeyh, former Obama administration official on Iran, and now continuing with the Council on Foreign Relations, joining me from Washington. Mr. Takeyh, thank you for joining us. You probably heard our other two guests, and we're just particularly playing that soundbite from President Obama. Has he stepped up his rhetoric, and why is he doing that now?
Well, I think it's inevitable as the situation in Iran deteriorates and as you have greater degree of human rights abuses and government forceful suppression of the dissent movement, that the United States and the president would react in such manner. It's inconceivable for me for the president not to have done so. Particularly strong language in terms of depicting Iran as a tyranny.
What does that mean then for his desire to continue or to try to hold the door open for negotiations?
Well, I'm not quite sure if the two are incompatible. You can have negotiations with Iran, as the United States has had negotiations with many adversarial countries, while also at the same time disapproving of the internal practices of those regimes. Now, whether that was the Chinese government or other such non-representative states, I think you can do both of them, but the president and the United States would have to stand up and declare that some of the behavior of the clerical regime is unacceptable, but also be open to negotiating some sort of a restraints on Iran's nuclear program, which also violates Iran's international obligations.
So you talk about the nuclear program. A deadline has come and gone for Iran to respond to the proposals of the West. Iran is now putting its counter-proposal. Where do you think this is headed in the immediate term?
Well, I suspect in the immediate term, the United States and its allies will try to ratchet up economic pressures on Iran, particularly targeting the Revolutionary Guard organization and its business enterprises, maybe even some aspect of the Iranian petroleum sector. So you begin to see an intensification of economic pressure on Iran in the hope that external pressure combined with internal pressure will cause Iran to adjust its behavior.
This is a tried and true, Mr. Takeyh, this is a tried and some would say not so true method, that sanctions and pressure haven't really worked. Why would it be different this time?
Well, it may not be different this time, but the idea is that you have a greater degree of international cooperation, particularly with a greater degree of assistance from Russia. That may be more hopeful than real, but that's essentially what the assessment is today. Mm-hmm. Second of all is the Iranian government internally is rather weak and vulnerable, and it may seek some sort of an agreement abroad to at least mitigate international pressures. I mean, as I said, this is a theory, and like most speculative ideas, we'll see how it pans out in practice.
You wrote an analysis on what was going on, and you basically compared the revolutionary situation back in '79 to what's going on right now, in that both seem to have, let's say, uncertain responses to the challenges to the regime. Do you think the government is going to... Go ahead.
Well, it's important to suggest that history doesn't always repeat itself. Actually, as a matter of fact, seldom repeats itself. Some of the challenges that the Islamic Republic faces today are not dissimilar to the challenges that the monarchy faced. But the situations are also different. I think the Iranian government, at this point, for instance, if the supreme leader was receptive to some of the proposals made by Mr. Mousavi, you could perhaps see some sort of a peaceful resolution for this. But however it comes about in terms of an internal compromise, the supreme leader would have to accept that his power will be diminished. And I'm not quite sure if he's ready to do that.
Now, you heard what Mr. Marandi, who supports the Islamic Republic, said in terms of saying that it's the reform movement is fractured, that they're agents of international entities. What is the analysis inside the U.S. about the strength of the reform movement?
Well, in my view, that the opposition movement is somewhat incoherent. It doesn't have a central nervous system. It doesn't even have an identifiable set of leaders or even a coherent ideology. It is a protest movement. But it's been a peculiar protest movement in a sense that it has sustained itself. And the longer it sustains itself, the more ideology and so forth and even leadership will suggest themselves. Whether they're agents of the West and that sort of a thing, that's just obviously nonsense. And I'm not sure if that rhetoric really impresses anyone. It certainly convinces no one.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll be back at this subject and hope you'll join us again.